go to God's apple pie. This is day 15, so that will be chapter 15 on page 113. Graph 3, and it starts here. What God desires. What God desires for you is beauty and sweetness. He is drawing you to the honeysuckle. There are other beautiful things around the flower. There are butterflies around the honeysuckle. There are even bees. This is where pollination occurs, which symbolizes the multiplication of beauty. There aren't any flies, no nasty attitudes amongst all this beauty, no stinking thinking, just smiles and joy. The sweetness of life, who he made you to be. He made you as his apple pie, so be his apple pie. Be sweet. I've said this before. You don't owe your past any anger or bitterness. He made you sweet on purpose. Life doesn't get to mess up his recipe. Why y'all sitting there like that wasn't good? That was good. Yeah, do the thing. That was good. Okay. So I got 3 more. I think, yeah, I got 3 more. Oops. You were born. So we're on day 22, of course, that's chapter 22. We're on page 166. So now we're getting into how you're guarding your heart, right? Because this chapter is actually called Guard Your Heart. And I thought this was important to read today. I handpicked some of these stories because I wanted you to really get the essence of what I'm trying to accomplish in the book. It's not just all my business, my personal stuff, and the things I've gone through, but there are things that I have gone through to explain to you how you can actually make it through and be happy. You know you can be happy in this life. Yeah. You truly can. You do, like I said on that last sentence, you do not owe your past bitterness. So listen to this. This is the second paragraph on page 166. I guess it will be considered the second paragraph. It starts at when. When we think of keeping our hearts, we automatically think that we should not put too much stock into anyone, right? When you think of guard your heart, usually what's the first thing you think? What's your first thing about Steve?
Don't be too personal.
Yeah, you go distance.
Protect your neck, right? Well, this is what God was saying. Essentially, when we hear guard your heart, we hear don't be too loving. But that scripture in the Bible has absolutely nothing to do with not loving people. Guard your heart really means keep your heart from becoming bitter. Because keeping your heart from becoming bitter is harder than loving people. You have to force yourself not to care about people. And that's antagonistic to your true spirit. So I thought that was good to touch on. And then, this is what I wanted to tell you about when I read the first scripture, the first chapter. This is about Steve Jobs. It's on page 167. He didn't guard his heart. So y'all heard this saying, it's not the water that sinks the boat, it's the water that gets in the boat that sinks the boat. Y'all heard that before? Okay. Listen to this story about Steve Jobs. 167, page, chapter 3, 167. I shared a little about Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple, on day 13. This is still Guard Your Heart. Not only did he die without hope, but he also died without love. He was lonely. He had all the money you could imagine, yet he lived an emotionally unfulfilled life. He died full of bitterness and unforgiveness. He was an angry man because his parents put him up for adoption as a baby. He allowed his entire life to be affected by a feeling of rejection from when he was a baby. He was 50-something when he died. Even though he didn't count his blessings, I'm not saying it there, I'm telling you, he didn't count his blessings because someone loved him enough to adopt him, even though he had a daughter and a wife that loved him. He could His thought process, his movements, his lifestyle were all based on that one feeling from when he was a baby. And he didn't even feel it because he was a baby. He let one situation, one drip of water get into his boat, and he let it sink his whole boat. He couldn't even love his own daughter properly, freely. All that money, but he was miserable. Now tell me, is that a way to live? So do you owe your past anger and bitterness? Or do you think there's a way you can get free and tell them you can't have another one of my days? I'm going to be 50. My hair is gray underneath this. Did you call this pretty? My hat.
Your hat.
Can you imagine if I was upset about all the things I've been through? I have testimonies over there. So I'm gonna take a look to your right? Your
Left.
Your left. So, the book, The Night My Sister Was God, is my testimony from my 20s. I was a pregnant teenager. The Art of Prayer is my testimonies from my 30s. And the Future I Made is my testimonies from my 40s. So I have enough to fill up to where I could literally just let anger and bitterness and disappointment just overtake me. But you don't have to live like that. You can have this same book.